Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Ancestral Muses. This is Pamela Bussey's podcast, and I will be interviewing her for this session. We may have more than one session in this series, and it's my pleasure to introduce Pamela Bussey, who is the citizen of the world, and she has done some really fantastic thing in reaching out and connecting with people of all classes, all structure, all strata. I'm very honored to present Pamela Bussey.
Maha, you wax eloquently. Thank you so much for inviting me into your space. And we've been planning to do this now for years.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we are finally able to make it happen. Thank you so much.
It is a pleasure, Pam. I know we've known each other now for about 3-4 years?
Yes.
And it was very interesting how we met for the first time.
Yes.
It was at this
Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap. It was a Quantum Leap
Yes.
exhibit. Yes. And Pam, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, before we speak about me, how about we just share one or two things about you?
Okay.
See how I did that, how I turned the tables? So why don't you share a little bit about you, and then I'll share about me.
Well, I'm an evolving soul. I see my journey as one of constantly becoming, and what that means for me is just be a connector, be a facilitator of life, helping people in their own transition and giving some sort of clarity in life processes, which I've learned firsthand from my own personal experience. And now that I've beyond that a little bit, we never fully outgrow our own processes, because as long as you're alive, you're in process of moving through life, transforming and learning and growing. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay, Maho. As usual, you do what you always do. So let me just share. So Quantum Leap is a winery that I never knew there was a winery in Orlando to begin with.
Yeah. True.
And so at this particular time, there was an exhibit, and they were choosing an artist whose art was going to be exhibited on their wine for the upcoming year. So one thing Mr. Maho did not share with you is that he also is an artist. He does magnificent watercolors. He also did not share with you that professionally he's an architect. And so architecture and an artist, like the right hand and the left hand. So those things kind of go hand in hand. And in his professional life, his work is fabulous, and his watercolors also are fabulous. So with that said, I'll now share a little bit about me. You like how I did that?
Yes,
so yes, I call myself a citizen of the world, primarily because I've had the great fortune from a very early age of being able to travel. My father was in the military, living in different cities, states, countries, and as an adult, I've managed to maintain that, meaning I've been very fortunate to be able to travel. Citizen of the world because while we are all humans, we all have different belief systems. We may be different in terms of our religious beliefs. We may be different in our cultural upbringing. The bottom line, however, is that we are all humans. And I seem to have a particular knack, a gift for which I'm truly grateful, where I'm able to interact with people regardless of what most people would see as differences that separate. And for me, I think you can always, if you take the time, you can always find something that you have in common with someone. So I'm just able to, just by being who I am, to connect with people and and if I have a quote superpower, that's my superpower, is that I'm able to just see people for who they are. People are able to see me for who I am, and we're able to connect and engage. And I try to do that in an effort to foster better understanding among.
Talk about understanding. You have and talk about citizen of the world. You have recently did quite a few trips outside the country. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. This year, 2023, has been amazing. In January, I was able to go to Togo for the second time. The first time I was in Togo was the summer of 1981. I had the good fortune to have attended a law school, Temple University, now called Temple Beasley School of Law, which is located in Philadelphia. They had a summer program at the University of Ghana Law School in Legon, Accra, which is right outside of Accra, West Africa. And so while there, we did a day trip to Lomé, Togo. And as I said, this past January, I was able to go for 2 weeks and explore more of Togo. And so for those who have never been to the continent of Africa, it is truly a place that it's home. I mean, we all of civilization comes from the continent of Africa. I was born in Georgia, and in Georgia, we have red clay. And in Ghana and in Togo, they have the same red clay. So for me, it was kind of like a visceral gut kind of thing when I first got to both of those places and saw the red clay. I was like, whoa, this is home for me. Also this year, I had the opportunity to go to Sedona, Arizona. And if you've never been to Sedona, Arizona, I highly recommend that as well, because it's one, there are places in the United States and throughout the world which are known as energetic. I don't know what adjective I want to say, but they are known throughout the world for being a source of energy. And in Sedona, Arizona, you have spaces where the vortexes, they're called vortexes, can either be masculine or feminine. And I was able to go to those places where the vortexes were either masculine or feminine. It's a very, very, very spiritual place. And in a few weeks, I will be going back to the continent of Africa, and I'll be exploring Tanzania and Zanzibar. So maybe when I come back, we can do episode 2 or 3.
There you go.
And talk about what my adventures are.
That's what I'm talking about.
In East Africa.
No, you're very artistic, and when I first met you, I did not understand how artistic you are in terms of your creativity and so on and so forth. So you also do quilt. And yes. Tell us about that. Tell us about the quilting that you do and the organization in which you belong.
Okay, so I do art quilts, and I quilt with a wonderful, wonderful group of women. And we meet at the Hannibal Cultural Center, which is in Winter Park. And our fearless leader is Lauren Austin. Lauren Austin is a fiber artist. She just recently had a quilt show in Alsace, France, which is near the German border. And so the women that I quilt with, we call ourselves the story quilters. And we are called the story quilters because I believe that we all have a story to tell. Sure. And in my podcast, when I meet people, which are generally people that I know, we just talk about everyday things, talk about their lives, because I think we can be an inspiration for someone. And so in my quilts, I try to share my travel adventures, my travels to places that typically most people have not been: Africa, India, Indonesia. And when I travel to those places, I am very conscious of the traditions, or um, in a lot of cultures, the spirituality, if you will, that exists. So when I went to Bali, it was probably one of the most spiritual places I've been, because I noticed that if you are observant, that there would be banana leaf, and on a banana leaf, there would be food. And so the first one or two I saw, I was like, what's that about? And then it occurred to me that these were offerings being made to their ancestors. And so, those of us who come from cultures where veneration or worshiping our ancestors is a part of our DNA and who we are, that struck a chord in me. And so, also, when I travel, I bring back fabric from places that I have been, and I incorporate the fabric from places that I have been into my art quilts. And I try to make use of symbols or practices that people would not ordinarily be aware of in my art quilts.
You talk about, you keep referring to spirituality. And you talk about the infusion of culture and the references and relationship to spirituality. What does spirituality means to you?
That's a very good question, Maho. Hmm. Okay. There is a difference in my mind between religion and spirituality. Religion to me speaks more to organized religion, like Catholicism, like Islam, like Buddhism. These are organized religions that have certain practices and beliefs, if you will. Spirituality, on the other hand, is more a state of being. It's intrinsic. It's who you are. It's inside of you. It's you. I have, because I know so many people who are Buddhist or who are Muslim or who are Hindu, and because they've allowed me to be a part of their lives and their specific cultural practices, and I've incorporated a little bit of this, a little bit of that from all of their practices into the way I move in my life. So, um, you know, Buddhists believe in non-attachment, and so to a certain degree, I try to subscribe to that theory of not getting too attached to things, because things are just that, things. When we leave this earth, we can't take things with us. So all that you can hope is that you will be remembered for what you did, what kind of person you were, how you treated people. And particularly in South Africa, they have a theory called Ubuntu. And it basically says, I am who I am because of who you are. It's more involved than that. You can Google it, but I try to live my life with those principles as well. I celebrate Christmas and Kwanzaa, and there are principles in the practice of Kwanzaa that I incorporate into my life every day. So I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. It does. It's a point of view. It's a perspective.
Yes.
And talk about colorful and variances. People being attracted to whatever belief system they have. You tend to be very colorful and very attractive and beautiful in your deportment. What is your inspiration? I mean, even now looking at your garb, and you have always been very impressive, most impressive with how you dress. What inspires you, and how do you relate to what you're wearing to how you're feeling?
Thank you for that compliment, Maho. Maybe it comes from a place of knowing who I am. And who am I? I'm a Black woman um, in America.
A proud Black woman, I might add.
Yes, I
Yes.
happen to have the benefit of being an educated Black woman. I have the benefit of having been educated in a system where I was exposed to art, to music, to literature, travel. These are all things I think that had an impact on me. At a very early age, my mother taught me how to sew. I've always never met a color I didn't like. And people that know me know, that I dress colorfully.
Yes, you do.
And so the other part of that is being comfortable and not thinking that I am disrespecting a culture. And I know in today's society, misappropriation of culture is a thing, but I wear saris, I wear Indian clothing, I wear African clothing. I wear whatever I feel like putting on. And I'm fortunate that I have a wardrobe which encompasses all of that. And so what I have on today is just basic black, but I have on this overcoat which certainly has African overtones. It has cowrie shells at the bottom of it. Um, I have on my sterling silver feather bracelet because feathers always find me. I have on an ivory bracelet. I have numerous ivory bracelets from my trips to Africa. I have on a necklace which I got in Sedona, and this is called Botswana agate. And I don't know if you can see, one of them is like grayish and has what they call an eye.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the eye?
Yes.
All right. So if I could, I wanted to share, and I am going to read very quickly because everything has life.
Right.
We should be respectful of Mother Earth. We should be respectful of each other. I also think that everything has spirituality attached to it. And so when I was in a store, and this was in Sedona, and I was just looking around, and there was an area where they had a basket, and in the basket they had items that had been reduced to half price, whatever. And so I picked up this necklace, and it's rather heavy, and I forget what I paid for it, but it was like a good deal. And I took it to the counter, and it was like whatever the price was. And then I didn't know what the stone was, which is kind of interesting. I always like to know what something is. So I would carry the necklace with me every time I would go out. And Sedona is known for not just being a metaphysical place, but also a lot of stones. There are a lot of Native American people who were there. And so eventually someone told me it was Botswana agate. And so I'm just going to read very quickly what it says about Botswana agate. So an eye formation, which is like the one stone that kind of looks like it's an eye, formation in Botswana agate is both protective and considered especially lucky. And it says that it's good for many things. It's useful to repel negative energy. It promotes inner stability, composure, maturity, and encourages security, self-confidence, on and on and on. And then as a final thing, it says it's used to repel spiders. So I don't know, it just spoke to me. And sometimes I have the saying that there are no coincidences, only synchronicities. During the time that I was in Sedona, I was wrestling with a particular situation, and I was able to resolve it. And I think having the necklace appear at the time it appeared was part of the healing process for me.
Talk about synchronicity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, Miss Pam.
Mr. Maho.
This is our name for each other,
Exactly.
lovingly refer to each other as Miss
course.
Pam and Mr. Maho.
Yes.
So you've been in Orlando for a while, yes?
Yes, I've been in the Central Florida area now in excess of 30 years.
30 years. So my question to you is this. We have recently had a massive influx of new residents in Central Florida. Do you have any opinion in terms of cultural integration? What do you see happening, evolving, or what have you noticed in terms of where you were then to today?
So I grew up in Philadelphia, and I don't have to tell you because you grew up in New York. Night and day to where we currently are, especially for you where you are.
It is, definitely.
Bottom line is when I first moved here, and it was my choice to move here. I mean, before I moved here, I did research, and I knew that Central Florida was an area that was going to grow, and indeed it has grown. But at the time that I moved here, there was no law school, there was no med school, and growing up in Philadelphia, there were more colleges and universities than you could count on fingers, toes, and still would meet someone's fingers and toes. So it was, at some levels, kind of culturally taking a step backward, like being in the backwoods or something. However, what Orlando always had going, there would be these festivals which would showcase different cultures, because Orlando, Central Florida, is an area which is a melting pot. And that was a saving grace. And then over time, we did get a medical school in Lake Nona. We did, FAMU did get its charter back, and there's now FAMU Law School, and there's University of Orlando, actually Barry University Law School. And I was part of a multicultural group which was called People's Theater, which is now no longer in existence, but there is art everywhere. I mean, there's Fusion Fest, which is, every Thanksgiving weekend. So I've seen with my own eyes how.
And by the way, Fusion Fest is a year-round activity, which I did not know.
Yes, so there are events that happen throughout the year where they have dining experiences, cultural experiences. So while this may not be Philadelphia or New York, progress is indeed being made. And you, in fact, having shown your art in various venues, which that's been sort of a coming out for you, because you before had not really been doing that so much, had you?
Right.
And I too have had the honor of with the women I quote with, we've had shows at different venues. So we're a work in progress. It's changing, which is a good thing, without a doubt.
Yes, I agree. Now, I would love to be able to speak to you forever. Just sit at your feet and hear your beautiful stories. Unfortunately, we have to close up this episode, and we will pick this up with another episode. So, Miss Pam, in closing this episode, I would like to ask you a question. What does life mean to you?
Okay. I subscribe to the theory that you, like Jill Scott said, you should live your life like it's golden. I lost my father. My father died when I was very young, when I was 12 years old. And I think at such a young age, I really appreciated that none of us knows how long we're going to be here on the planet. And so what you should do during the time you're here, you should, anything that you think you want to make happen, make it happen. And for me, that's always translated into what I call my travel adventures. Meaning, people think it's very expensive to travel. It doesn't have to be. You can travel in the off season, which I do. I generally stay in Airbnbs, which allow you the flexibility of being in a community. You really get to immerse yourself in the culture of whatever country you're visiting. You have the opportunity to hang out with the people, go to the supermarket, cook. So I would say live your life, trust yourself, know who you are. Take the time to be still. And in the stillness, hopefully, listen to your heart. Figure out when you are no longer in this skin, in this body, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want people to say about you? Do you want them to say, you know what? Pam Bussey, she lived a full life. She was here, she was there. She made a difference. She tried to be compassionate, help people. And or do you want to be known for just being stagnant, for not being willing to take leaps of faith, to do the unexpected, to live your life with an open heart and an open mind?
Beautifully said. And with that, we will close Ancestral Muses. It was indeed a pleasure to be the host and to listen to the host.
It's been interesting because normally I'm the one that's driving
That's
the
what I'm
conversation.
saying. That's what I'm
So
saying.
I'm trying not to do my usual thing. So this has been quite the adventure. And thank you, Maho.
It is beautiful. Thank you, Pam. It was really a pleasure, and thank you for allowing me to be part of your Ancestral Muses.
Thank you.
And we will continue. Thank
and
you so
I
much.
believe you also are going to showcase this on your platform, are you not?
I am.
And would you briefly tell them about your platform?
So Acke Art is it's an evolving platform. It's built around the galvanization of artistic talents, and it's not just showing art. It's about the community of artistry, the work, the discussion, the family of artists, the help, the connection. It's a whole plethora of things. Of course, we sell art on the website as well, and we have other offerings. So, as I said, it's developing and we're moving forward, and we hope to see great strides in the coming year. And thank you for that opportunity, Pam. As always, she's always prompting me to promote myself.
Yes, because I'm all about collaboration. Because,
it is about.
It is. We have to support each other.
It is about collaboration.
Absolutely.
And in closing, I just want to say, for those who are listening to this, that, we are no spectators. We can choose to be spectators, but we weren't meant just to be spectators. We are meant to be collaborators and participants in our life.
Absolutely.
And we move it, and it makes life much more interesting and beautiful for everyone when everyone participates from their heart.
Absolutely.
From their heart. Thank you so much.
And thank you.